Hello and welcome. So in this video we are taking a look at a very popular and very effective trading strategy, the MACD, which is the abbreviation for Moving Average Convergence Divergence, which sounds complicated in the first place, but is actually very easy to understand and, at least in my opinion, easy to code in Python. So what we are doing in specific is to construct the strategy, visualize the trading signals, and backtest the strategy over a longer time period in the end of this video. As a recommendation, you are kindly invited to check out my video on trading moving average crossovers beforehand to better follow along, and a lot of the concepts shown there will be applied in this video as well. So let's take a look at the very first step, where we are calculating the MACD line, which is nothing more than subtracting the 26 period exponential moving average from the 12 period exponential moving average. So we have a long-term EMA and a short-term EMA here. If we are doing that, we are getting a line chart as shown here. By the way, this is the MACD line for Tesla over the last roughly 6 months. After we have done that, we are calculating the signal line, which is the 9 period EMA of the MACD line itself. And this line is plotted on top of the MACD line, and we are getting a plot like this. Okay, we have done that, but what's the strategy now? So if you have watched my crossover strategy video, you will see a parallel here. We are buying the asset when the MACD is crossing above the signal line, and we are selling the asset when the MACD line crosses below the signal line. So let's take an example. What you are seeing here is the chart from the slide before, and below that we have Tesla's stock price and the buying and selling signals. So this is a buying signal, the green one here, and this is a selling signal, the red one here. So if we are taking a look here, you see that the MACD line is crossing above the red signal line. This is why we are getting a buying signal here. On the other hand, you see here that the MACD line is crossing below the signal line, and this is why we are getting a selling signal here. So I hope I could make the strategy clear. I didn't explain concepts as the exponential moving average here, but I will link some resources in the video description in case you are not familiar with that, and link a video where I'm going more into details about that. So let's get into coding. Okay, so as you see, I already imported some necessary libraries, Finance to get online stock price data, and Matplotlib for visualizations. In the very first step now, I'm just pulling stock prices for Tesla and store that in a variable which I'm calling df for data frame. So I'm using the Finance library, use the download function, provide the ticker symbol for Tesla, and provide a starting date. So we are just going roughly 6 months back. So we are starting in the beginning of November last year, right? So let's take a quick look at that data frame. So you see we're getting this one, open, high, low, close, adjusted close, and volume. Now we want to make some amendments to this data frame. We want to add a column, exponential moving average for 12 periods, for 26 periods, the MACD, and the signal. And this is exactly what we're doing in the next step. So let's get rid of that and define a function, and I'm just calling that MACD. And this function is taking a data frame as an argument and is adding, first of all, the short-term exponential moving average. So we are just calling that EMA 12 for 12 periods here. And we are taking the close column of our data frame here and use the pandas function EWM, provide the span as 12. So this is the number of periods, and use the mean out of that. If you want to be 100% mathematically correct, you can also define the argument adjusted as false. I will link some resources in the video description if you want to have a further reading. I'm not covering that in this video here, and the difference is very, 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 very low. So I'm not doing that here, but if you want to be 100% correct, you would need to do that. So the next line would be to define the EMA for 26 periods. So I'm just copy pasting here and doing the right amendments, and define the MACD now as explained in the beginning. I'm just taking the 12 period EMA and subtract the long-term EMA here, so the 26 period EMA. Finally, let's define the signal, and the signal, as explained, is just the MACD, and again the exponential moving average over 9 periods. So I'm using EWM, the span as 9, and again take the mean out of that. In the end, I just want to have a feedback that this function was being executed successfully, so you don't have to do that. I'm just doing that for the sake of completeness here, so I'm just providing me indicators added. So these are my indicators, or successfully manipulated, or whatever you want. Okay, so let's call this function and provide our data frame. And now you see we're getting this message here, and if we're taking a look at the data frame now, you see that we have the desired columns, right? EMA 12, EMA 26, MACD, and the signal. Okay, and yeah, in the next step, I'm just showing you how I plotted the MACD and signal line. So you might be interested in that. And this is actually pretty straightforward. We're just using PLT, take a line plot, and provide the signal column. And we are defining the label as it is. So this is our signal line. And the color, I think we took red. We are also plotting the MACD line. Take the label as MACD. And the color, we took green, pretty sure about that. Adding a legend to that plot and showing the plot. And now you see you are getting the plot from the very beginning, if you remember. Right? And yeah, the next step would be to find the signals. And I'm following the exact same logic from my crossover strategy. So the loop you will see is basically nearly the exact same thing here. So I'm creating 2 empty lists here, buy and sell. 2 empty lists. And now I'm populating them in the following way. I'm looping over this data frame here. And I'm just checking if the MACD value is above the signal value. And what I'm also checking is if that was the case the day before, so the row before. This is the logic for the buying signals. The same for the selling signals. I'm checking if the MACD is below the signal value, and it was not the case the day before. Additionally, I'm quite sure I didn't do that in my crossover strategy. I'm starting the loop at number 2 here, because as you see, I have 0 values here. And if I'm comparing this row with this row now, I would get wrong signal. So I'm excluding those 2 first rows here, right? So that I'm not getting wrong signals here. This is why my loop will start at 2. So yeah, let's define the loop for I in range, and as said, 2 and the length of the data frame. And now, same logic as in the crossover strategy. First of all, I'm checking if my MACD value in every single row, so this is why I'm using the ilog function here and provide the I, as the I is just every row in this data frame, is larger than the signal value in every single row. And also the MACD value the day before, so I'm taking I minus 1, is smaller than the signal value I minus 1 here, so the signal value the day before. And if that's the case, I'm appending I to the buy list, right? And what exactly is this doing? It is just providing me the row number where the buying condition is fulfilled. So I'm getting an integer stored in this buying list here. Okay. And for the selling signal, same logic. So we can just use elif here and just copy paste and do the right amendments. So this should be smaller and shouldn't be the day before. And of course we have to change that to sell. All right, so we can execute that. And we have our signals. So let's print them out. As you see, we're just getting numbers, and these numbers are the row numbers where these conditions are fulfilled. Now let's plot that as we did in the beginning as well. So you might be interested in that, to plot the signals. And again, this is the exact same syntax as it was in the crossover strategy. So I'm just using a scatter plot here. Provide the row where this buying condition is fulfilled as the x-axis, and I'm taking the index, which is just containing the date time, right? So in case you are kind of confused right now, let's take a quick look. So you know, every single row is containing a date value, and if I'm using the index, I'm getting this date value, right? So if I'm using df ilog buy and then the index, I'm getting the dates where I should buy the asset. Okay? So this is what I'm doing here. And the y value should be my close price, right? So I'm using ilog again, then screen for the buying row number and provide the close price here. Define the marker, and we took I don't even know the word for that, this one here. Comment if you know the word for that, I'm not sure right now. And provide, oh sorry, made a mistake here. And provide the color as green. Head is the word. Okay, same logic for the selling condition. So I'm providing sell here. This is the dates where I should sell that asset. And this is the selling price. And I have to amend the marker to where it is. Here it is. And define the color as red. Okay, so these are the signals. And now we have to add the line plot for the close price of Tesla. So we can just use a plot, use the close column of the data frame, provide a label, just call that Tesla close. And I think I used black in the beginning. Same logic as before, we are adding a legend to that and showing the plot. So let's see, hope I didn't do anything wrong, but looks good, right? So in case you're wondering why my plot is looking slightly different in the very beginning, I've defined a figure size. So I've done that in my crossover video as well. So let's just quickly do that. PLT, figure size, figure, then size. Don't know what exactly I was taking, maybe this one. Yeah. So you see this is the plot from the beginning. And I already explained, right? Here we should buy the asset, here we should sell the asset, and so on. Okay, now we are coming to the, I think, or in my opinion, the trickiest part. That is the backtest. So we want to know how much profit did we make. So background is somebody comment, okay, I want to have the profits, please. So I thought it would be interesting for you if I'm showing you how I would do it, backtesting the strategy. Therefore, you have to understand that those signals are based on the close price, right? So we cannot assume that we are buying the asset on this exact date, right? but we can buy the asset on the very next date. So I'm defining real buys here, which is containing the row numbers of the point in time where you really buy this asset. And this is nothing more than the row value for +1 for every single buying row value, right? And I'm using this convention to achieve that. I'm just adding a 1 to this. Let me quickly print that out, to this buy list, right? So this is row number 11 as an example, and I can buy on row number 12. So I'm just using I+1 for I in buy here, right? And same, of course, for the real cells. So I'm using I+1 for I in cell, and now I have my real buy and real sell points in time. Okay, and now I want to have the prices of those buys and sells. So I'm just calling it as it is, my buy prices. And now, as I know, on the prior day that I want to buy the asset, I can buy directly on the open. So I'm just using the open column and screen for the real buys, right? And the same logic for my sell prices. I can just use real cells here. So what am I doing? I'm just screening the open prices for the real buy dates here, and same for the sell dates. Okay, so let's take a quick look at that. So you see, these are my buying prices and the dates. So on the 18th of November, my buying price was 448, which was the open price on this date. Okay. Now we have a special case, and you need to understand that this is not happening every time, but it can happen. And by coincidence, this is happening in our case. It could happen, and this is the case, that we have a selling first and no buying point before. So we are not able to calculate this profit, right? Because we don't have a buying price. And I mean, you can go back in time, of course, but we are working with this time horizon. And in fact, we cannot calculate the profit of this trade. And funnily, the same is true for this one here, because we have no selling point, right? And this can happen when you are backtesting the strategy, and we have to account for that. So we have to exclude those two cases. If we have a buying condition in the very end and no selling condition, or if we have a selling condition in the very beginning. And this is what I'm doing in the next step. I'm just saying, if my sell prices index and the very first index, so sell price index is just the date here, is below my buy prices index, very first value, then I want to drop this value, because I just cannot calculate the profit. So I'm just using sell prices is equal to sell prices, and then I'm just dropping the index here. So I'm just dropping this one. So this is the buy prices. This would be, of course, the sell prices. So let's quickly print that out. So I'm just dropping this value here. This is what this is doing. And now we want to account for the buying price here. So if the very last value would be a buy, then we want to drop that as well. And this has the same logic. I'm using buy prices dot index, provide the very last value, and say, okay, if this is larger than the very last value of the sell index, -1, I'm copy pasting here. I'm using buy prices is equal to buy prices drop, buy prices index -1, right? So let's execute that. And now we have accounted for these two circumstances. Yeah, finally, we are just storing the relative profits in a list. So we're using profits relative, use an empty list for that, and we are populating that with a loop for I in range, and then we could take the length of the sell prices or the length of the buy prices. Shouldn't make a difference, as if we are executing that, the length of the two should always be the same. So I'm taking the sell prices here, but you could also take the buy prices. So let's append profits relative, append, and then we are just taking the difference between the sell prices and the buy price. So this is just the total profit, and we have to divide that by the buy price to get the relative profit. And yeah, with that we are getting the relative profit. They made the parentheses, yeah. So let's execute that and print out the relative profits. So we see first trade we made 41%, second one 80.84%, and here we are big time losing. Now you might ask yourself, okay, this is a backtest over 6 months, so this is worth nothing. And of course I'm accounting for that as well. So I'm going to the very beginning again, pull data from, let's just say we are taking, what can we take? Let's just start in the beginning of 2010 here, pulling the data. And we are not executing, but we are calling this function again, have the new indicators. So as you see, we're getting data frame starting in 2010, and we have our MACD and signal values here. And we are just executing everything again. So I can plot if you're interested in that. This looks something like this. So yeah, not really meaningful here, but this one we have to execute again. Then we can plot that, but you won't see much here. Yeah, you see, so this is not meaningful, but nevertheless, we are calculating our real buys here, same logic, so we don't have to change anything. We'll just execute that all again. This one we have to amend, and we are populating this list again, and now we're getting the relative profits over the last, 11 years. So as you see, we're getting a lot of profits here, right? And now you're interested in the average profits. So yeah, how can we do that? We can take the sum of that and take the length of that sum divided by length, yeah. And we're getting an average profit over the last 11 years of the strategy of 4.9 or roughly 5%. So that's kind of insane. And yeah, alternative, you can use the data frame of the profits and just take the mean out of that, just to be sure that okay, sorry, forgot that. Yeah, we're getting this average profit. Yeah, so that's basically it for this strategy. I hope I made everything clear. In case you have any questions, be kind invited to drop me a comment. Yeah, try that out for your assets. And yeah, I hope you liked this video. I don't know what to say, so thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the upcoming videos. Bye bye.